welcome everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful, thanks Emma. Let's see. Looks like we might be waiting on a few more people to join us, so I'll give it just a minute. Looks like we're a little lighter this evening than we were at the last one. Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and get started. So my name is Olivia Sontag. Last time I was here with you all as a note taker, and this time I'll be facilitating. I work as an associate planner for Arlington County, and I will eventually be working on the use permit that will go to the county board for the Career Center project. And then we also have Emma Martin with us. Emma's going to be taking notes. She's also an associate planner with Arlington County. And took some time out of her evening to help us out. So she'll be capturing notes. If she has any clarifying questions, she might kind of jump in just to ask, and then she'll be sharing her notes with us towards the end of the meeting so that we can do a quick debrief, clarify anything. So we have about 50 minutes total for discussion. Again, we'll try to save 10 minutes at the end to do that debrief. It leaves about 7 to 8 minutes for each of the questions that are posed this evening. So I'll ask you to raise your hand if you'd like to respond, and otherwise I'll just go down the list and invite each of you to speak individually. And certainly don't feel like you have to respond to every question. You can pass. We can come back to you after you've heard from your other colleagues. But I just want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak. We do just really want to gather as much input as possible this evening on some of the topics we'll be discussing so that APS staff and the county can consider it in our next round of review. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just take a quick roll call. And then if you could each just briefly introduce yourself and what your role is as a BLPC or PFRC member, and then we'll jump right into the questions. So it doesn't look like we have Cole Forbes with us this evening. We have Margaret Chung. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Margaret Chung, Principal, Arlington Career Center.
Thank you. And then Christopher. Doesn't look like we have Christopher with us. Christy. Hi, Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Salbert. I'm a member of the PFRC and the president of the Arlington Heights Civic Association.
Thank you, Christy. Looks like we're missing Sarah tonight. Chip.
Hi, folks. Chip Goyette, representing Douglas Park Civic Association.
Thanks, Chip. And then Kurt Schuler.
Hi, I'm Kurt Schuler. I am a member of the Arlington Special Education Advisory Committee, ASAC.
Thanks, Kurt. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with our discussion questions for this evening, and just let me know when you all can see it.
We can see it.
Wonderful. So just as a reference guide, we do have some of the background on discussion questions. We have some of the principles of civic design that APS is referencing in some of these revisions that they've proposed. A couple different diagrams. So if you ever just want me to flip back to these, certainly let me know and I can scroll back up. But I think that last time we focused a lot of the conversation on transportation, on open space, on height in particular. So this time we are going to, one, focus it on public space. I think that was kind of an area that was lacking last time, and they'd really like some additional input from members on that piece. We're then going to jump into on-site parking, some of the different options that they're presenting, either via the garage or surface parking. Then just looking at different strengths and concerns with this revised site plan. Are they heading in the right direction? Are there things that were lost in the last iteration? And then the alignment with the principles of civic design. And then if there are any other items that you'd like to, make note of that are not within some of these topics that we're covering, Emma's going to capture those in just an extra space at the bottom, just to make sure we do pass that feedback along. We don't want to miss out on any of that. So with that, I'm going to pose the first question. Please feel free to raise your hand or jump in. There are fewer of us this evening, so we should be able to make it through these pretty quickly. So the revised site concept proposes an area between the existing Career Center and new Career Center field that would both support bus service operations during the school day and resemble a public plaza at all other times. What features of this proposal do you like the best? And while I'm sharing my screen, I can't quite see who's got their hand raised. So Emma, would you mind calling out?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would it be helpful if
Yeah, if you could show it, that would be great, because I'm kind of.
Yeah, no problem.
And which
Play the best.
portion are you specifically speaking about? The brown
So,
portion? Or-
let me look back at the question one more time. It's the new field that would support bus service operations and resemble a public plaza, which features, okay, so this one we're talking about this circulation route right here. They are proposing to just have buses enter and exit on South Highland Street, and that would leave this whole portion here just as a plaza and a walkway, vehicle-free for users of the campus.
Oh, I thought Jeff said that they were leaning towards option 2. Didn't he say that just a few minutes ago?
I think possibly, but we're looking for input on that this evening.
Okay, well, I'll start unless somebody else wants to start.
Yeah, go ahead, Christy.
I very much prefer option 2 over option 1, just because I think entering and exiting, and we've had a lot of neighbors express concern about the volume of traffic that will be on Highland. So I definitely prefer 2 so that some traffic can enter and exit from Walter Reed. I also think it's a good idea. It would be nice that it is closed to traffic other than non-school times. I do know, like on the weekends, a lot of people have birthday parties on the blacktop at the Career Center. A lot of kids, that's where they learn how to ride their bikes. And they bike over or walk over to the library. So I also like the idea of keeping it closed, like on weekends or after school.
Thanks, Christy.
No, this is Kurt. I have a comment, which is not about the kind of the choice between option 1 or option 2, but just in under option 1, I assume that that the like this area between the 2 buildings would still be set up so that it would be, for instance, it would be open to emergency vehicles and not, like not have some, not have bollards or something. So anyway, I just wanted to raise that that point that, if option two is, sorry, if option one is chosen, the design of that area should be such that emergency vehicles could still get through.
That's a great point. Thank you. Margaret, do you have any input on this one?
Yeah, so I'm a little confused. I'm wondering if option 2 would actually reduce the amount of traffic on Highland, because when I'm seeing a two-way arrow that goes. So is the implication that the traffic is going to, the buses are going to come in from Walter Reed towards Highland, or that it's coming from Highland out towards Walter Reed? So that's not clear. And then I thought I saw in one of the diagrams that regardless if it's option 1 or 2, that area between the library and the new Career Center building will kind of be like a plaza. So regardless if it's option 1 or 2, it's going to have that plaza feel, and that it will only be for bus use. I guess that's a question I have. And then I would agree with Chrissy in that it would only be for bus use. And that if the emergency, so I think, is it Kurt or Chip that mentioned emergency? So I wonder, yeah, I mean, definitely if there's an emergency use, depending on where the emergency is located, right? Right now, they do enter that center area when we have emergency vehicles. But to reduce the amount of traffic that goes into the interior of the campus would be good because of safety reasons. It's just good to have an open plaza area where students, during the school day, there's reduced traffic. And then just like Chrissy was saying, on weekends, it would preclude that there's like no traffic on site during the weekends.
Thanks for that input. Yeah, I think they're trying to determine whether or not there's a benefit to keeping this completely bus and vehicle free. If that would create, a safer design between the two buildings, and having that plaza space, is that kind of an important way to have better connectivity between those two sites, because it does break it up quite a bit if you're adding almost a street through the whole campus.
Yeah, it seems like it would be a safer design. Option 1 feels safer because it means that there isn't traffic coming in from Walter Reed, right? That it's restricted, and it would be only buses that come onto Highland. Right now, the traffic jam that we see along Highland is caused because our parent pickup stops for both the Career Center and MPSA are on Highland. So there's a lot of car traffic on Highland right now because of that.
Chip, do you have any thoughts on this one, or do?
Yep. So I would concur. I mean, it seems like one. I don't particularly like one. Again, mainly because of the impact on Highland Street. And sorry, did you just remove the map?
I think
was just
I
looking at
got
it,
kicked
so-
off for just a second, so let me pull it back up.
Okay, that's good. And yeah, someone representing kind of folks and families south of the Pike. Highland is kind of a route that a lot of families take going up to TJ Middle School and areas north. And so I think anything that you can do to reduce vehicles, buses, anything, because I was looking at the timeline as well, and it looks like buses would be coming onto site around what, 7:30? Does that sound about right with an 8 o'clock start time? So, that's right when the kids are heading to TJ, whether it's walking, biking, what have you. And so, yes, they can peel off and do another side street, but it just really kind of clogs up Highland Street. So I would say from a flow standpoint for the county being interested in kids biking, walking, etc., anything that we can do to utilize Walter Reed would be ideal.
Thanks, Chip. Any final thoughts on this question? I'll pull up the next one in case there's any overlap. So we're looking at what other alternatives or suggestions do you have for that area of the site, including the curb cut along Walter Reed Drive, that may strengthen the alignment with the principles of civic design.
This is Kurt. I just, just in response to Chip's point, just want to kind of return to what was said earlier, that if you might want to think about the mix of cars and buses. So if you have if you have just buses on Highland Street, well, I'm not a resident, so I'm just of that neighborhood. So I'm just saying, saying this to you as a consideration. If you just have buses on Highland Street, is that better than having fewer buses but having more cars? So that's given what was said earlier about the pickup and drop off. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, I lived in the neighborhood for 20 years. So if you have any questions about it, I feel like I'm pretty qualified to answer. But the thing is, there are duplexes and single family homes all up and down Highland. So it can never be a situation where only buses are going down Highland. So I'm not sure I understand your question or your statement.
I mean, but cars as far as pickup and drop off, right? If the right now, if you're comparing the situation now, the situation when this is when this is built, if the cars are all picking up and dropping off on Walter Reed, then then you don't have you don't have the cars, you don't have those cars on Highland, and so if you just have buses on Highland, then that could well be less. If they only enter and exit on Highland, you might well just have less overall traffic than you do now, because you won't have any cars on Highland picking up and dropping off. That's it.
You can't prevent cars on Highland because people live there. They're going to be driving their cars up and down the street.
No, but I mean, but we're talking about the traffic that's related to picking up and dropping off students, right?
I understand that, but I don't think you're going to get Montessori parents to drop off at a place that's, not next to MIPSA. I could understand that, but my kids used to go to Henry when that was Henry, and I've been by MIPSA many times during drop off and pickup. They drop off and pick up right there at MIPSA where you're currently showing the bus exiting. So, I mean, I don't think any of us are experts in traffic flow, but I would defer to the experts on this, but I don't think that only having bus entry and exit on Highland is necessarily safer. And I also want everyone to consider, who are you burdening there? There are a lot of duplexes with large families, multi-generational families that live. I think the duplexes start about halfway down Highland. They have a lot of cars. So I just want people to know that I really think putting all the traffic onto Highland is a bad idea.
So I wonder if at least for the career center, the new career center, if the parent drop off was either along 9th or Walter Reed, that would help. And then with bus traffic, I hear what Chrissy is saying. It is at just very specific times. So I just wonder, it's, you know, the lineup occurs at the end of the day. At other times, it's pretty much the drop off in the morning. They're all at the same time. And then we have a handful of shuttles during the day.
Do we know where, so when the buses come in to either MPSA or Career Center, do they come from like Columbia Pike into Highland? Is that, do you know, is that the route for, I'm talking either beginning of the day or end of the day? I'm just curious.
It depends
Mhm.
what direction the buses are coming from, but they
Okay.
do have to go up Highland, or some of them actually come down Highland, and it's a one-way entry from
Right.
Highland to
Yep.
Walter
Mhm.
Reed.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. And I just, you know, I'm just speaking again as someone that has biked that. My daughter is now in 6th grade at TJ, and we bike 3 of their kids to school every day, right? And so it's just been interesting, right? And I would say it's not on the Career Center. It's probably been more on MPSA and the drop-offs going on there. Just like I think Kurt mentioned, that it's been more of the car traffic that's been challenging than say the bus traffic, right? And so it's been interesting. So just so everybody knows, just the
So
perspective, right? So
yeah, and actually the
Mhm.
MPSA traffic is one way from Walter Reed to Highland. So those passages are one way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So again, anything we can do to, I think like everyone is saying, lighten the load on Highland is ideal, whether it's a combination of cars, buses, what have you, right? So
Yeah. This is all very helpful. I think this is part of the next chapter of review, is really just diving into traffic counts, anticipated traffic counts, and really thinking carefully about where everybody is being funneled. So I think at the next meeting, we'll definitely have a lot more information on that from our transportation experts. So unless there are any final thoughts, I think this is a good segue into the discussion on on-site parking.
I
So
wanted
the
to talk about the second question, this part B.
yeah, go ahead.
Can you go back, please? So for suggestions for that curb cut on Walter Reed, I know that the county is doing their, can you go back to the massing picture, please? I know the county is doing their complete streets on Walter Reed, but some of that area on Walter Reed, it's wide enough, I think, that you could actually go in a few feet. For instance, where the Fenwick building is now, if you cut in just a little bit, you could create a parent drop-off or car drop-off line that the road is quite wide right there in front of Fenwick, that I think you could probably get away with the parent drop-off line there that maybe would go into the plaza just a little bit and then come right back out. So it would be, I think, a good idea for APS to consider working with the county to see if there is some way to create a car line there. And I don't think, because of the width of Walter Reed there and the fact that Fenwick itself is set back a little, there may be a way to do it.
Thanks, Christy. We'll certainly capture that in the notes and pass that along.
I wonder, is it the second question or the first question, 1A and B, where the idea of the plaza and what's nice about, are we to comment now on what we like about what's being presented in these diagrams?
You certainly can. I think I think we'll also capture that again with the strengths and concerns with this revised plan and the plaza. But certainly, I mean, share now if you have a thought. We don't want you to, you can go ahead and share those thoughts now.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it was just very nice to see the diagrams showing the plaza feel along Walter Reed. I think there were some diagrams that actually showed these nice spaces where the community, as they walk past the building, will have places, and then during the school day, it potentially could be areas where students could eat lunch. It's just nice gathering spaces, and it just makes it feel like a very inviting place that would benefit both the school and the community. So it just felt very inviting, having those moments, rather than just a flush, right? A flush design where it was straight and they didn't have those moments of coming in and creating these little plaza areas. I thought it created really nice areas where people could gather.
Yeah, and that's a great, it's great to get input on that because APS is really starting to develop some of the massing right now. It's trying to break it down so it doesn't appear as if it's a big wall along Walter Reed, and then stepping back areas. And then I think they've also increased the setback from Walter Reed so that we can have some more pockets of green space, places for tables, you know, dining spots, seating areas along Walter Reed. And also right now they're proposing some kind of terracing there to, again, minimize that scale.
It's great because the levels go down as it goes towards 7th. So the height of the building, it's higher on the commercial end, and then as you go towards the residential, it's lower. So yeah,
they definitely picked that up from the last comments we received at the last breakout.
It looks like Jeffrey Chambers has his hand raised.
Hi, Olivia. I just wanted to say that I'm here if you had any questions that I could try to answer. I did hear Christie's comments with regard to Walter Reed, and there's a lot of conversation going on right now with the county because of we have to coordinate with the Complete Streets work that's going to be going on there. So they have a lot of opinions. So we'll be working through that. But we are looking at this point in time of probably having accessible parking there and short-term parking, which would be, could be pickup, drop off, but we're having conversations on pickup and drop off with the county and how we can set that up. And, because we don't want vehicles, private vehicles, with the exception of deliveries and the vehicles that go into the garage, internal to the site. So we will be looking at that and having further conversation with the county.
Can I ask you a follow-up question, Jeff, since you're on the phone?
Sure.
Okay. I have another maybe major suggestion. If you look at the corner, the bottom left-hand corner, you can't really see it on this drawing because of the what do you call that? The key. But 9th Street, when it's coming down towards Walter Reed, it V's and goes around a little mound of grass. Everything to the right of that mound of grass is completely unnecessary in my view. If there were some way to take that back to the career center, give it back to the Career Center campus, I think that you could move the garage even further. I guess that's east or down towards more the middle of the 9th Street. And I think it would be awesome and fantastic if you could do that And as you were saying, if you can excavate just a little bit, if you have your entrance and exit on 9th Street and put the garage height more aligned with the Career Center building site height, I think that would be great. Maybe if you showed a different picture, if there's any confusion about what I'm saying.
No,
I
I actually agree with you, Christy. If you look at the complete streets, they're going to be signalizing 9th Street, and they're actually taking that space. We had always hoped to get it back, but the main 9th Street is actually going to be shifting to the north, so that it aligns with the street. I had always hoped they would shift it to the south, but that's not what they're going to do.
Who's they? We need to fight this, Jeff.
Well, if you go to the Complete Streets website, I think they actually have that plan up.
I got to get on that. But what I'm saying is that little cutout where the cursor is almost, if you move the cursor up just a teeny tiny bit, right there.
Yep.
That entrance and exit onto 9th Street is completely 100% unnecessary. That could be green space given back to the Career Center parcel, or you could somehow move or situate, if it was more of a straight line, you could maybe move the garage down a little bit, or I guess it's east as we're looking at it. I did get some complaints from people, there in the duplexes, that the fact that you have one tall garage right on the street, right next to another tall garage, kind of gives you a tunnel effect.
Yeah, we will be looking at that garage. We're going to look at how we can push it into the ground if we can. There is actually for about 9 feet of fill on the back side of that site, which is one of the nice things about, I think in the last plan, we were looking at coming into the garage up towards Highland. Now we're looking at coming in the middle, which is one of the lower sections of the site. So we are thinking of that. We're thinking exactly what you're talking about. But we probably, the shape of our site is probably not going to change because of the complete streets. However, we will have a left turn lane to get buses out that come out on Highland and come south and come out 9th Street. They will be able to turn left there rather than.
My next step is to complain to the Complete Streets people.
Well, you go for that. That's your privilege to do that. But anyhow, do you have any other questions? Because I have to move on to another group. So
Thanks, Jeff.
I hope that was helpful.
It was. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your conversations.
All right, so we have about 20 minutes left. So let's jump over to the parking. So I guess the first question is, how appealing to you is expanding the parking footprint around the existing Career Center building if it were to modify the shape and or height of the above grade parking garage? So a larger footprint for a shorter garage. Initial reactions to that?
I'm just going to go ahead and say that if they're able to push it down a little bit, like Jeff was saying, I mean, further east, because we're looking west. Up is west in this photo, in this schematic. So if they're able to push it east a little bit, and that the height of the garage is exactly even with the height of the existing Career Center building, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that would look very nice. And I think that is much more preferable than losing all the green space that's shown at the top of the existing ACC or west of the existing ACC in this picture.
Okay, thanks. Margaret?
Yeah, I would agree. I think we don't want to lose green space. And so, Chrissy, are you saying that To cut, so when you say move the parking structure towards Walter Reed, is that what you're saying? So that it's more towards the middle of 9th Street?
Correct.
So in the dimensions that are given, you're saying then it would have to cut into the existing ACC?
No, no. What I'm saying is, 9th Street, there's like a car, more than a car width, and I don't know, maybe 10 feet of lane on
Okay.
9th Street that is unnecessary. Oops, that is unnecessary. Oops. Do you still see me? Am I still on? Okay, I pushed my computer when I shouldn't have. So there's about 10 feet of pavement there that is completely unnecessary. You can see like a little teardrop shape at the bottom of 9th Street.
It's a very wide street. Yeah.
Wow, that is completely unnecessary. If
I
it were possible to regain that space onto the Career Center site, which I will go and talk to the Complete Streets people, and you were able to push it down, obviously not into the existing building, but straighten out that, I guess right now the campus, it looks like it kind of goes in a little bit, right? Straighten that out more, then you could probably push it down without pushing it into the building.
I hear what you're saying. So have it almost flush with the other side of the Career Center.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I don't
it
think
would-
you're going to be able to get it flush, but I think you can do something that
Mhm.
will move it down and make more green space on the sidewalk there.
Yeah, so and then maintain the height so that we're not using what should be green space as surface parking space. I would agree with that. Green
Great,
space
thanks.
is much more desirable than surface lot space. Yeah.
Okay, so we're hearing two for the green space. Chip?
Yeah, I would agree that green space is definitely more appealing, particularly, on Highland, right at the end there. So are you asking if we should expand the footprint of the parking lot east to west, or like going down and, into the sub, right? And like digging down a level, or what? Can you just show me the question again? I'm sorry. I just need to see that question again.
Oh, sure. I'll rephrase it. I think in this diagram, the blue area is the
Mhm.
like potential parking
parking?
footprint. So
Yeah,
that's where the garage could potentially be expanded to
Right,
be
right,
only 2 stories instead of 3 or 4 stories.
right.
But again, you'd lose that green space.
Yeah, so I'd agree with what everyone said. I mean, I think that putting some green space definitely between, the parking garage and Highland Street and the houses there is needed. Absolutely. I think anything you can do to push the parking east, as Christy has said, is ideal as well. I don't know if there's going to be discussion at all in the future about, one ways or where people can go, out of the parking garage and so forth to again try to encourage folks to go more towards Walter Reed than as opposed to towards Highland. I don't know if that's going to be part of the conversation, but that's definitely something that should be looked at. So, but yeah, I pretty much agree with what's been said so far. So,
Thanks, Chip. And Kurt?
I'm in agreement with Christy.
Great. So let's see if there's a part B here. So for each recent capital project, APS has relied on available and convenient on-street parking to support a limited portion of peak parking demand. What groups, for example, APS staff, students, library staff, library visitors, should be prioritized for on-street parking? Margaret, I imagine you might have some thoughts on this.
Well, for me, obviously staff. But I mean, from the size of the garage, it seems like that should house, it would be more than enough for our staff. So then I think students, for me, would be a priority because we have quite a few high school students who drive. And so, yeah, I would say students. After
I would
staff.
say in a recent estimate, I think they saw between 60 and 80 potential on-street parking spaces around the site to serve visitors and staff. So it was a substantial number of spaces to potentially draw upon for some of these users, which was surprising for me. I was surprised at the number of spaces when you add them all up.
Yeah, I mean, there's metered parking, and I don't know how much restricted parking there is. So in that number, does that include the metered spaces? Because it's hard for staff to park in metered spaces.
Yeah, I think they're exploring options for redesignating those spaces, either for specific, staff members with permits, or keeping some of them metered, short-term, longer-term, a variety. I know they're factoring that into their considerations as they're determining their parking demands for the site.
So this is already mentioned in the document, but I just I want to reemphasize it. So right, some of those spaces should be handicap parking. I'm not I'm sure that the people who do this stuff all the time like have a good estimate of about how many do you need for the size of a facility, and it's it's certainly not going to be 80. It might be like 10 or something, but anyway, that needs it's important that they be well close to the building and not just over in the parking lot, because it's if you're in a wheelchair, for instance, or if you're on crutches, it's a long way to go.
Absolutely. Christy, did you have anything to add on this one?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree with Kurt about accessible parking. I think the spaces that are right there on Walter Reed, right in front of the library portion of the Career Center, so like right in front of where the mural art is located, those spaces there should definitely be reserved for library and for ADA parking. I'm also a little confused where all this 80 spaces are coming from, because Highland itself is restricted parking. So it's hard to say without seeing a map of where these 80 spaces are, but I do think that right there in front of the library should be definitely, especially you have like a lot of elderly people that go to the library there that need to be able to park right in front as well. Oh, and I'll say one more thing, which is after Fleet was built, there were not enough curb cuts, and there weren't any there weren't curb cuts, and there was no ADA parking in the front, and it was a big problem, and it took a lot of time and effort among a lot of people to fix it. So I'm really hoping that APS gets this one right in the first time.
Hi, Christy. Sorry, which project or street were you referring to that had too few curb cuts?
South Ode Glebe, right in front of Fleet. I had to call the county to get curb cuts put in. So, I mean, I wasn't the only one who called. So, but a lot of people had to call and get a lot of the things that were not built right as far as the ADA parking for fleet. So I agree with everyone that we need to be ahead of that for this project.
Thanks, Christy. Let's see, did we hear from Chip on this one?
No, not yet. So I'd concur that ADA accessibility has to be front and center, right? Whether it's students, library patrons, what have you, right? So, I mean, that has to be, a focus for sure. And then, I also question, I'm just curious as well, just like Christy had mentioned, where these 80 street parking spaces are coming from, because again, as someone that travels up Highland regularly, those are not, there's no parking there during the day, right? Or they're permitted or whatever it is. So if we're talking about 9th Street, we're talking about spaces there that have the meters, perhaps, maybe, and then maybe some spots along along Walter Reed as well. I mean, I don't count 80 for all of that, but perhaps there is. I don't know. And then I would just say, in regards to kind of the total amount of spots at whatever it is, the right sizing that's done, it really should be in concurrence or in relation to what we're doing with the other schools as well, right? This is a site that is meant to be transit friendly, TDM focused, so forth. So, we should really build parking to that extent, right? So if we're expecting a 75%, no car or no single occupancy vehicles accessing the site, then it should be built that way, in my opinion. And so I just don't want to overbuild parking where you're going to have lots of spots empty, because that's just not financially prudent. So I would look at, how many student spots are at Wakefield, how many student spots are at Washington Liberty, as examples. And Washington Liberty is probably more metro accessible than this site, right? So I would just like those considered in this when we're talking about the number of spots that we're going to be building on the site. So that's it.
Yep. So now that we've talked about just some of the changes that APS has made since the last iteration we've seen, we just want to get a sense of, which of the aspects of the building, some of those massing changes and some of the other site concepts are most appealing or least appealing or less appealing to you all. And I think we've kind of sussed some of those out through discussion, but I'm going to pull up those diagrams again so that we can just capture any lingering comments on some of these changes or other changes you'd like to see explored within the interior site design.
And just to quickly add in, the comments that I've already captured were that the diagrams showing the plaza were nice, the community space was nice and inviting, the tapered building height is nice, and the existing width of 9th Street is unnecessary. So I've got those captured.
Thanks, Emma. So any more thoughts on the open space that they're proposing right now within the site, the field?
I would just say maybe consider, and this may not be popular, but maybe consider putting the terraces on the other side to face interior to the site. I only say that because at HB, that's the way it is. The building is straight, I guess it's Wilson, and then the terraces are on the other side of the building overlooking the field. So one thing to consider is maybe putting the terraces on the other side of the building You see what I'm saying, right? Instead of the terraces being on the Walter Reed side, being on the interior side, it may be instead of kids looking out onto a street, they would be looking out into green space. Other kids may be on the ground level eating their lunches. It may give a more cohesive feel than looking out onto the street. And it's also the way the HB building is. So it's just a thought.
Thanks, Christy. Margaret?
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, it's hard to tell what the final design will be. I think the advantage of having the terrace on that side is that it does give the building a very inviting feeling. I wonder if something on the other side could also be provided to kind of address what Christy was saying about having students be able to enjoy the green space. So I'm not sure if through those terraces, some of those, the tops of the buildings also might be kind of open areas where you know, there might be, because I see on the drawing, is that the one in the bottom left corner, a lot of green stuff going on top of the roofs. So I'm just thinking that maybe the rooftops are also going to be areas where students will be able to sit and enjoy the view. I also kind of liked how, and I think you can see it in the bottom right, is the idea that when buses are using that lane, it's just for buses, but otherwise it's like a pedestrian walkway, is what I'm seeing. And so that's that feeling of it being a pedestrian friendly plaza is very inviting.
Thanks, Margaret. Kurt?
I don't have any additional comments. I think like you know, Christy's point is well taken about, you know, do you like, does it you know, would it be nicer for, you know, for students and staff if you had the green space on the street side or on the interior side? So I don't have an opinion about that, but I think it's, you know, it's, but anyway, like it's you know, it's just a point that's worth considering in some detail.
Thanks, Kurt. And Chip?
I think I'm with Kurt a little bit. I don't really have, you know, much of a say. I guess all I would say is, you know, think about the neighborhood across the street on Walter Reed. Is it nicer for them to see buildings, or is it nicer for them to see green, you know, across the street? It's not my neighborhood, so it's more of Christie's. So or maybe not. It's more Penrose, I guess. I don't know what neighborhood is across the street from Walter Reed. So again, what's that?
I was just saying it's Penrose.
It's Penrose.
I mean,
Okay, yeah, it's Penrose. So
yeah.
I don't have any additional comments.
For everything. Yeah.
No.
Okay, so let's jump quickly to our last question, which is on some of the principles of civic design. So it's asking which, if any, principles of civic design do not seem to be reflected in the revised building and site concepts, and how might those principles be made more apparent in the concept design? I don't know if any of you have those in front of you. I'm going to scroll back up to some of the principles that APS, you know, is using, and some of the strategies that they've connected those to. So again, looking at the massing strategies for breaking down the massing of that building, especially along Walter Reed. And then again, revisiting that kind of the functional, you know, design and flow through the site, and then orienting all of those buildings appropriately to streets and public spaces. I think we got a lot of great feedback just on that last comment about where those terraces should be placed, and then taking advantage of prominent sites and major civic programs to create some some bold architecture. So again, that's what they were focusing on with those terraces. But are there any other principles of civic design that you feel were not addressed in this latest revision that you'd like to see in the next iterations?
I would like to see more of a three-dimensional schematic of what it would look like as Jeff was saying, where you could get the parking lot equal in height to the Career Center building. So maybe see what that would look like as it is dug out a little bit. That would be nice to see.
Chip, we can jump to you on this one.
I'm trying to think through this. I mean, it's, I guess the one thing that I always wonder about is the parking kind of down on Highland and 9th down there. Is it, is that the best place for parking on a site like this? Or is it simply we have to use that spot because we decided that we're going to put all the buildings on Walter Reed as opposed to repurposing the buildings that are there? I don't really have, I guess, too much more to say other than, again, it just seems like the parking is out of place, if that makes sense, because you can't really access Montessori from there, and it's to get to this building is just, again, it's not very close. So it's just seems odd to me. And I don't know if that's considered in the principles or not. So, but I know flow is part of the principles, so it just seems a little odd.
I think that is a theme that we keep hearing, so it's fair to keep raising that concern with APS.
So I'd like to address that because as a school that's at the Career Center and is having to then move into the new building, the idea that we can stay in the existing building and then be able to do the move all at once without disrupting our current environment is very positive for us because we are a growing school. We have a lot of students, and the idea of renovating our current existing space and building on that is it's just very it would be a hardship. So this idea of building a new building along Walter Reed, which actually, when you think about the principles of civic design, it's much more inviting to the community because as it is, the Career Center is kind of hidden. You have to go in past the library and then you see the Career Center. As this design is developed along Walter Reed, it just feels like we're inviting the community to be part of who we are, and the design feels very intentional in making that as a statement. And I get what the neighborhoods, their concern about the location of the parking garage, but I think if something, the idea that Christy had of moving it closer to Walter Reed, then it would be further away from Highland, and it wouldn't have that impact so much on the residential community. So as it is, I feel like a lot of the principles of civic design have been addressed in this design.
I'm just going to say is we talked about it a lot in the neighborhood, and is anybody like wowed by this whole thing? Maybe not, but of all the places you can put a garage, I think that's the best place. Again, I would prefer it to be pushed east a little bit. People want it to be undergrounded a little bit. If it can be pushed east, because the topography goes down a little bit as you go east. I think people in the neighborhood would be very happy with that. We did discuss this quite extensively at our last Civic Association meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. I mean, out of all the options, I do think that's the best.
Thanks, Christy. I'm going to jump in really quick. We probably have about 30 seconds. So I think the 2 points that I'm going to highlight are, one, pushing the garage as far east towards Walter Reed as possible, but while maintaining, you know, a low profile and preserving green space. And then I think the second idea or point to mention is that the terracing is nice. It provides an inviting kind of facade for the building, but also consider it on the other side, facing the field area. Are there any other points of importance you want me to share? All right, I think we're about to get kicked out. Well, those will be our 2 takeaways, but I'm sure we'll hear lots of other stuff from other groups. But thank you all so much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.